Okay, good morning everyone, and Chazak, Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday morning as we are continuing in our studies of Beresheet, and God willing today's class and for the next foreseeable time, the classes are going to be dedicated for the Hatzlacha of our brothers and sisters all over the world, in Eretz Israel and not in Eretz Israel. The truth is we have to be very careful wherever in the world we are. There was, supposedly there's going to be something going on Friday, where there's some type of jihad going to take place. So everybody needs to be careful, really, wherever you are. We need to be aware. We have to always rely on Hashem, even if we're not in Israel. You see parades and rallies pro-Palestinian. I mean, it's crazy to think and to see that there could be people in the world that are okay with babies being beheaded, that are okay with what's going on. I mean, it's just horrific, and that people could be okay with it, and that there's silence by the most influential people in the world, that they're just quiet and watching and not saying anything, and not only not saying anything, some people are even pro all of that, pro-Palestinian. I mean, it's wild to think that such could be the case, but this is the situation, my friends. We have to realize that if we're going to wait for the world to stand with us, we're going to wait a long time, because Am Yisrael always stood alone. We always stood alone. Hen am levadad yishkon. This is what Bil'am, an anti-Semite, said. He knew it. He said it. We stand alone, and we will always have to maybe stand alone. But that's okay, because here we are, 3,000 years later. Bechol dor vador. Every generation they try to kill us, and we're still standing. So stand we must, fight we must, and fight we will. And Hashem will help us, Be'ezat Hashem. We are doing our part here as spiritual soldiers. We are learning, we are praying, we are giving tzedakah, we are upping our chesed. What's going on over here is unbelievable. The amount of achdut, the amount of unity, people gathering together, donating money, purchasing supplies and essentials for the army, warehouses, pallets and pallets and pallets going out to help our soldiers in Israel. So please get involved, my friends, whatever way you can, okay? Whatever gift you have, this is the time to use it for the situation going on. This is a state of emergency. This is a war. This is not normal times. Whatever your talent is, whatever your gift is, use it right now. There's reserves. Reserves is not only pulling reserves for the army. Pulling reserves from our bank accounts, pulling all the talent we have, gathering them up, piling them up, and using it. If you're able to create videos, create content, and put it out there. If you're able to make, if you have money, send the money. Of course, you got to be careful. Make sure it's going to the right sources. A lot of unfortunate people could be, stealing the money at these times. A lot of charlatans, a lot of fakers. But that being said, we still have to get involved and do our due diligence. Please, everybody, in whatever way that looks like, whatever way we can. Okay, everybody. With their own abilities. Okay, with that being said, let's jump right in. And again, we have here in synagogue tonight a night of chizuk, of learning. From 7:15, it'll be 45 minutes of chizuk, then some tehillim and selichot, and then some singing. It should be around a 2-hour event. So please join us in the synagogue. Also, there will be $111 sponsored for every person that comes. A few people have willingly stepped up to sponsor that and send that money to Israel as well for aid. So coming is achieving many things. It's achieving praying, and it's achieving learning, and it's achieving tzedakah. Okay, so please join us tonight in the synagogue, Rabotai. Bring your friends, bring your family. If you're in the area, please come. There's no reason not to be here. Okay. With that being said, let's jump right in to the Ora Hayim HaKadosh, who is going to share with us today some beautiful ideas. Let's talk today a little bit about Shabbat. We know that Hashem created the world for 6 days, okay? And let's jump to chapter 2. Okay, chapter 2. Vaychulu hashamayim ve'haaretz v'chol tzeva'am. The heavens, the earth are now all finished. Everything, all their array, okay? So for 6 days, God was creating, was organizing, was dividing, was setting up boundaries, right? And that is, right, for 6 days, that's what he's doing. And on the seventh day, Vaychulu Hashemayim, it's all done. Vaychal Elohim Bayom HaShevi'i Melachto. On the seventh day, God completed His work. Asher Asa, which He did. Vayishbot Bayom HaShevi'i, and He rested on the seventh day. Mikol Melachto Asher Asa, from all the work that He did. Vayvarech Elohim et Yom HaShevi'i, God blessed the seventh day. Vaykadesh Oto, He sanctified it. Ki bo Shabbat Mikol Melachto, for on it He rested from all His work. Asher bara Elohim la'asot, which God created to make. So honestly, beautiful psukim, but Ora Hayim over here is going to point out that there's a lot of extra words that are unnecessary. And let us read together, and he'll come out with a beautiful answer at the end. But let's read together the Ora Hayim, Hayim ben Atar. Yesh latet lev leomro. One needs to reflect upon what's being said over here. Asher asa. Come back to the second pasuk. Again, let's read it together. Vaychal, please open the book. Vaychal Elohim bayom hashevi'i. God finished on the seventh day. Melachto, His work. It could have stopped right there. God finished His work on the seventh day. But it doesn't. It then says, Asher asa. God finished on the seventh day His work that He did. Asks the Ora Hayim, what does it need to say? Asher asa. It could have stopped by the word before that. God did His work, melachto. He finished on the seventh day His work. Period. What's asher asa? That's question number one. Od yesh leha'ir. Furthermore, what does it mean by Yom HaShevi'i? What does it mean that He finished on the seventh day? Did God really finish on the seventh day? Let me ask you, my friends, my listeners, when did God finish? When did He finish creating the world? On the seventh day? Not true. It sounds like on the Yom HaShevi'i He did work. It sounds like He did work and He finished it that day. But that's not true. Ki bayom hashishi, He finished on the sixth day. Yes? So why does it say He finished Vaychal Elohim bayom hashevi'i? He finished on the seventh day. This is a very big question. Again, we say this pasuk every Friday night in Kiddush. Maybe this week on the Shabbat table, share this question and see what your friends and guests and family have to say about it. But it's a very obvious question. It sounds like God finished on the seventh day. Now the truth is, this is not the Ora Hayim asking this question. This question is asked already 1,000 years before him in the Gemara and the Midrash. And he quotes that answer. He quotes the answer of our rabbis in Beresheet Rabbah. And they say that really God did something that no human can do. For us, we never know really when Friday's over, when Saturday's starting. To get it exactly on the point of the new day, when there's the changing of the guards from Friday to Saturday, we don't know exactly. God knows exactly. So God finished exactly on Friday, when Friday is the last second He stopped. But to us, from our vantage point, it looks like it's already Saturday, because we are bound by time, and it's impossible for us to be so precise. So from our angle, it looks like it's still that He finished on Saturday. That's how the Midrash answers the question. But the Ora Hayim says it's not really enough, this answer, because then they're really just saying it's as if He finished on Saturday. Ube'emet, but really, according to what the pasuk is saying, God finished on Saturday. Vaychal Elohim bayom hashevi'i. So therefore, the Ora Hayim wants to now come and suggest something marvelous, my friends, and let us sit together and see some brilliant things that are going to really, I think, enhance how we understand Shabbat, my friends. Yekaven HaKatuv lomar, we could really understand based on what our rabbis say in the Zohar. Look at this. Ha'olam haya rofef veroed. You should know, he says, that the world was rofef veroed. What does that mean? He says the world was shaky. When God created the world, for 6 days it was in a limbo. It was unstable. Right? Ad sheba'a Shabbat. And then something happened. What is that? Shabbat came. And once Shabbat came, nitkayem ha'olam v'nityased. The world became stable and firm. For 6 days, the world was very, very shaky. Shabbat comes, there was a certain serenity, and it was permanent. It was fixed. Shabbat gave the world its eternal existence. It gave the world its stability. And what does that mean? That's what the Zohar says, but what does that mean? So he explains, Ki beyom Shabbat bara Hashem. You know what God created on the seventh day? God created something on the seventh day. You know what he created? Nefesh ha'olam, the soul of the world. That means the world, everything is made up of physical, right? The body, it's a physical, but there's also a soul. The soul is what gives it the ability to live. When a person dies, it's not just that the heart stopped. The soul is gone. That's why you could put blood back into a person who's dead. He won't come back to life because there is an ingredient called the soul. The soul is needed to allow things to endure. The world, we have to know that the physical world also has a soul. The physical world also needs a soul. Hashem blew into creation a soul, but on which day? On the seventh day. So for 6 days the world had no soul. And what happens when something doesn't have a soul? You know, when they, if you ever saw when they kill a chicken, the chicken could move a little bit, but it's really just gonna die very quickly because its soul already left. It's not stable, right? So when Hashem created the world, for 6 days the world was shaky. It didn't really have any permanence until Shabbat came. And once Shabbat came, Hashem blew into the world a soul, not into mankind. Mankind got his soul on the sixth day, but the world got its soul on Shabbat. And that's what it means when it says, Beyom HaShebi'i Shabbat Vayinafash. On the seventh day, he rested, Vayinafash. What does it mean, Vayinafash? Vayinafash, simply it means he rested, right? And he took a break. Shabbat Vayinafash. Okay, he took a break and he rested. But our rabbis explain that Vayinafash is something deeper than that. Vayinafash is, the Or HaHaim wants to now say, you know what it means? Kevan Shabbat, once Shabbat came, Vayinafash. Not Hashem rested, but Nishba Shefa Hiyuni Bechol HaNivraim. Everything in the world got a nefesh. Isn't that amazing? One more time. Once Shabbat came, Vayinafash, the world got a nefesh. That's how the Or HaHaim explains. So what happened is, basically, for 6 days, Hashem created the world, and the world was running on empty. The world really didn't have a soul, and it was going to die out. And the second Shabbat entered, boom! A soul came that gave the world, that gave the 6 days, it rejuvenated. It gave it its new life. It was able to, it's like, you give a, what's it called? Right, a person, you give them oxygen, right? The world needed oxygen. Shabbat came, the world got its oxygen. Shabbat Vayinafash. That's how the Or HaHaim is explaining that word, Vayinafash. Unbelievable. Ki kodem Shabbat, because before Shabbat, lo haya nefesh lechol nivraim. The world did not have a soul. It didn't have an enduring soul. And we find that for this reason, look at this. Look at this, my friends. The Zohar explains, lemitzvat Hashem lamul bayom hashemini. You ever ask yourself, why is it Brit Milah need to be done on the 8th day? Why 8th day? You ever thought about it? Why not 7th day or 6th day or 5th day? Why 8? What an interesting number. Or a korban, you bring an animal as a korban. It's got to be brought on the 8th day. You can't bring a korban before 8 days. Hatam, the reason is, ad avor alav yom Shabbat. It has to go through an entire Shabbat. We need this baby to go through a Shabbat. V'yeh Baal Nefesh. Because then, when Shabbat comes, he'll receive a soul. You see, unbelievable what he's saying over here. That means that everything in creation did not have a soul until Shabbat comes. Shabbat came, it gave that item a soul. So Brit Milah, you gotta wait 8 days, because before 8 days, that baby doesn't have technically its soul. It receives a soul on Shabbat. And now that it has a soul, we can perform the Brit Milah. Same thing with the Korban. Now we go back and understand what the pasuk is saying. Vaychal Elohim, that Hashem finished. What is? We asked, how did he finish on the seventh day? I thought he finished on the sixth day. Answers the Ora Hayim, Shekila Hashem finished be'emtsaut. Doesn't mean on the seventh. Ba could also mean with. God finished not bayom, not on the seventh day he finished. He finished with the seventh day. Hashem, with the seventh day, finished creation. Meaning, what is that creation? Mahu melachto shekila. Lo shaya chaser davar me'asoto. It's not that anything from the first 6 days was missing. The first 6 days were complete. Everything that God created was fine the way it was. The problem is, right? He finished it. It was complete. Ela hakavana, but what it means is asher asa. Those two extra words that we asked in the beginning. Perush, meaning hamelacha shekvar asa. What God did, adayin hayta chasera. It was still missing something that was going to preserve it forever. So God created a world, and that world was perfect. It was fine the way it was, but it wasn't going to last. It was lasting durability. It was missing durability. It was not going to endure. It was not going to last. Right? Vaychal Elohim bayom hashevi'i, but came along, and with the seventh day, Hashem finished everything. Asher asa, whatever he already did, is going to now last. Amelachto asher asa, davar ma'amid. The Shabbat gives it longevity. Ubeimtsaut yom hashevi'i bo nigmar hanyan. Through this day, the Shabbat, now everything will be able to exist. Gam bazeh irvachnu. Now we also gain another answer. We have another question that we could answer. Beriat yom hashevi'i atzmo. Oh, sorry. Okay, fine. So let's pause over here. And now, with that in mind, let's fast forward to the third pasuk. Vayvarech Elohim et yom hashevi'i v'kadesh. So what happened? God. So we got what's going on over here. I mean, it's wild stuff. Ora Hayim is teaching us something beautiful, something magnificent. That Hashem created the world, but the world was just a frame. It was just a skeleton. It was missing the soul. And that soul came on Shabbat. Okay? The soul to the world came on Shabbat, and the soul to all of creation comes on Shabbat. But now look at the third pasuk. And you need to know what I just told you to understand what I'm about to tell you now. So God blessed the seventh day. He sanctified it, because on it, Kibo Shabbat Mikol Melachto Asher Bara Elohim Asot. On the seventh day, he rested. Okay? Now, Tzarich Ladat Kavanat HaKatuv B'Ma'amar Zeh asks the Ora Hayim now another question. And it has to be understood. What is going on in this pasuk? Why? Because really, it seems very extra, right? Why does Hashem abstain from work on the seventh day? So why do I need to now sanctify that day? Why does the day become holy? That's the question. Just because Hashem rested on Shabbat, now it becomes holy? Why should it be a holy day? You ever thought about it? Why is Shabbat a holy day? Fine. So he rested. He rested. Let me ask you, you go on vacation. Is vacation a holy time? This is a holy time. I rest. I need a break. I don't view my break as a holy time. But yet the pasuk says, since Hashem took a break, now it's a holy day. But you see where he's going with this? Look what he says. He says, "Lefaresh lefi ma shekatabnu l'mala," based on what we said above. Ki ha'olam haya haser kiyum. The world was missing its endurance. Ad Shabbat, until Shabbat came. Ve'amad ha'olam. Now the world can last. V'yesh leha'ir bazeh she'otam yamim kodem Shabbat. Now he asks a question. Watch this question. Okay, so now you understand why it's holy. You got a soul, the soul. But he asks a question. Look at this beautiful question. I think some of you were asking it. You were like, I saw you lip saying it. Kodem Shabbat. Before Shabbat came, the first 6 days, Bameh haya ha'olam omed. How was the world going on for those first 6 days? Right? What was giving those first 6 days their battery? If there was no Shabbat before, how did the first 6 days exist? The same way the first 6 days existed without a soul, so it could continue forever without a soul. What's this whole Dvar Torah the Ora Hayim needs to now give us? That, Shabbat comes, it gives it a soul. Okay, and the first 6 days, where was the soul for the first 6 days? It didn't need a soul. So the same way the first 6 didn't need a soul, whole creation doesn't need a soul. Why do you need a soul? What is this thing? You need a soul. But he says like this. He asks the question, he answers it. He says, Matzinu, he says, we find, Ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu Gilah Davar. God actually already answered this in the 10 Commandments. The Pasuk says, Ki Sheshet Yamim Asa Hashem Et HaShamayim Ve'et HaAretz. What does that mean? Someone translate that for me, please. Ki Sheshet Yamim. We sing it. Ki Sheshet Yamim Asa Et HaShamayim. Right? What does that mean? I know what you're all going to translate, and the Or Hayim is going to say it's wrong. Okay? But pause for a second and ask yourself, how do you translate those words that you say every week? Ki sheshet yamim asa Hashem et hashamayim et haaretz. Simply, this is how everyone's going to translate it. You ready? For 6 days, Hashem was creating. Ubayom hashevi'i Shabbat. And on the 7th, he stopped. Okay? So the way most books will translate it is for 6 days he created, and on the 7th he rested. Says the Or Hayim, it doesn't say that. It does not say that. It does not say for 6 days he created. What does it say? Ki sheshet yamim. Gilah. It says, it doesn't say for 6 days. It says because 6 days God created. What's the difference? The Bish'at HaBri'ah, when God created the world, Lo bara Hashem koach ba'olam zula la'amod sheshet yamim. Hashem created the world that it should last only 6 days. That's what it means. Ki sheshet yamim asa Hashem et hashamayim v'et haaretz. God created the world to last only 6 days. It doesn't mean he was creating for a period of 6 days. It means he created a world that would last only 6 days. Wild stuff. Ki sheshet yamim. That's what it means. Literally, that's what. If you read the words literally, that's actually what they're saying. The world was meant originally to only last 6 days. And then God created one day, Shabbat. And on that day of Shabbat, Hashem gives new life to the world. He puts in new batteries that it shall last for 6 days. You see, when Hashem created the world, he put batteries, and those batteries were meant to last for 6 days and 6 days only. And on Shabbat, the soul comes down to the world, and you know what the soul of Shabbat does? It gives new 6-day batteries for the world. Every Shabbat, we're giving the world ability to last for another 6 days. Unbelievable stuff. So Shabbat is not a way of resting from the previous week. Shabbat, according to this, is a way of giving life to the upcoming 6. That's what we're doing every time we keep Shabbat. We're giving the upcoming 6 days a way to continue, a way to last. Mashpia nefesh la'olam. Vezulat ze hayom. If not for the Shabbat, my friends, haya ha'olam harev. The world would be destroyed. Bigmar sheshet yamim. If not for Shabbat, comes Friday, at sunset of Friday, the world would go back to tohu vavohu. The world would go back to, just chaos. If not for Friday, if not for Shabbat. After 6 days are up, what happens to your toy? Your batteries die, the toy's dead. After 6 days, the world technically should go back to death, to chaos. V'tzarich Hashem, and what would happen if that were the case? Lehachino pam shniyah. God would have to recreate the world. Ubemtzaut Shabbat, but because of Shabbat ha'olam omed, now the world doesn't need to be recreated. You don't have to recreate the toy, the world. You just continues through Shabbat. And that's what it means. Ki bo Shabbat. For on it, he rested. You know what that means? It means not on it, it means through it. Be'emtzaut yom zeh, be through, with the Shabbat. Hashem was able. Be'emtzaut yom zeh Shabbat mikom melachto. With this day, unbelievable. My friends, I hope you're following in a book. Ki bo Shabbat mikom melachto. Because of it, because of Shabbat, Hashem is now able to Shabbat mikol melachto. God can now rest. If not because of Shabbat, then Hashem can't rest, because now comes Sunday, He would have to recreate the world. You see what the Orach Chaim is doing over here? Remarkable. He's changing the way to understand this pasuk. It's not saying on it He rested from all of His work. No. He's saying because of it, He is now able to rest. It's like Shabbat is basically God putting a manager. God's the CEO, and He put a manager. And because of the manager, the CEO can take a break. Shabbat is the manager. Shabbat is giving life to the first 6 days. It's giving it a new 6 days. And because of that, God now doesn't have to recreate the world every 6 days. So Kibo, through it, He's able to Shabbat mikol melachto. He's able to rest from all of His work. Just magnificent stuff over here, my friends, from the Orach Chaim. God now, because again, if not for Shabbat, He would have to recreate, but He's able to take a break through the Shabbat. According to our interpretation, we can now explain a further idea. Our rabbis tell us in Masechet Shabbat, page 119, Kol HaMekadesh, whoever does Kiddush, Ve'omer Vaychulu, and does Vaychulu, Ki'ilu Na'aseh Shutafik Makadosh Baruch Hu. My friends, when you keep Shabbat, on this week, Friday, when you're going to keep Shabbat Friday night, when you're going to make Kiddush, when you're going to say Vaychulu, you become a partner with God in creation. That's what the Gemara says on page 119, Masechet Shabbat. Okay? Now, Orach Chaim says, V'divrehem rechokim utchukim. These words are very, very extreme, right? It's a bit of a stretch. You could say, if you keep Shabbat, you're a good guy. If you keep Shabbat, you're a great person. Good for you. You'll even get a lot of reward in the next world. But come on, you're calling me a partner in creation? It's a stretch. Come on. Mishama kazot. Who heard of such a thing? A guy could come now and be a partner in creation. Something that was already created, by the way. Just imagine for a second. You join a company, and then the boss likes you, and he says at the speech that he gives, thank you. He says, I want to thank also this employee here. Because of him, he helped me side by side. Together we created this company. Come on. The guy just joined last week. The kid's not even 5 years old. The company's 35 years old. The kid's 25. He created the company. He's not even old enough to create the company even if he wanted to. Who are you kidding? How could it be that we keep Shabbat and now we are partners in creation that came before we were even created? How could we be partners in something that happened before us? Yes, this is the question of the Orach Chaim. So he says, and furthermore, another question, big deal, you're keeping Shabbat. And furthermore, even if it's a big thing to keep Shabbat, but to call it a partner in creation, okay, you want to say you get a lot of reward in Olam Haba. But according to what we explained, explains the Orach Chaim, this is very true. What the rabbis are saying is not a stretch. Rather, ki liyot ha-Shabbat hu ha-mekayem ha'olam. Since the Shabbat is what's giving the world its new batteries. Kol sheshet yamim, for the new 6 days that are coming up. Ve'acharav vor sheshet yamim yevo Shabbat acheret. And after 6 days are up, a new Shabbat comes. V'chayehu, and it's going to give new life and a new soul. V'kayemehu od sheshet yamim acherim, that's going to allow it to endure for another 6 days. And really, what does that mean that Shabbat's giving it life? It's not that the day of the Shabbat came. It's that there's people keeping the day. So it's not just that the 7th day came and the Shabbat brings batteries. Me and you, my friends, bring batteries. When we keep Shabbat, Shabbat without us is just a day of the week. But when me and you stand up and we do Kiddush, we are making a Shabbat. Without keepers, Shabbat's nothing. Im en mekaymim Shabbat and Shabbat. If not for the people keeping it, right? Then it's just another day of this. It's just another day. It's a 7th day. It's a day of rest when people actually rest and observe the laws. That's what makes it a Shabbat. So, and that's why, right? Right? If we don't keep Shabbat, what's it going to do? And therefore, now we understand, Kol HaMekadesh et HaShabbat, whoever does Kiddush on Friday, whoever sanctifies the day, Perush meaning, Mekayem v'shomeh kedushato be'emtzaut zeh, whoever keeps this holy day, through this day, Yeshno leShabbat be'emtzaut mitkayem ha'olam. Now he is allowing the world to exist for another 6. So of course, it's not a stretch, it's not an exaggeration, that if we keep Shabbat, the world will, that we're partners. Of course we're partners. Because every 7th day, Hashem needs to give new life to the world. And if there's no one keeping Shabbat, the world will not exist. So yes, we are partners. Unbelievable. So Shabbat is really what's allowing the world to sustain. And therefore, for sure, we are, my friends, partners in creation. Every one of us is a partner in creation when we keep Shabbat. We must realize that. And by the way, and with this he ends, you should know that from the day God created the world, there was always a person keeping the Shabbat. Tzaddik, at least one tzaddik, Yesod Olam. Ki Adam shomet Shabbat haya. Adam Arishon, Adam, he kept Shabbat. And every Shabbat that he kept was giving life to the upcoming 6 days. And then his son Shet. And then his son, right? Tzadikim, until you had Noach. And then Noach had eventually till Avraham. And then Yitzchak and Yaakov. Until today, my friends. And from the beginning of time, there has always been a person keeping Shabbat. That's what the Or HaHayim is suggesting here. And it's those people that keep the Shabbat that are actually allowing the world to exist. So my friends, we must realize, first of all, it's a beautiful idea, it's a beautiful concept, and it's beautiful to see how he explains the psukim in this way. Now it all makes sense. Now it makes sense that Hashem rested on the 7th. It doesn't mean that he rested on the 7th, but through the 7th, he's now able to rest. Because of Shabbat, God can now do nothing. Because we're the ones putting in the batteries to allow the world to go on for another 6. If not for Shabbat, then Hashem would have to recreate the world every 6 days. So this is really, I think, beautiful chizuk for us, my friends, as Shabbat is coming along this week, the first Shabbat of the year of starting from Beresheet. Hashem should help us and bless us to be able to keep Shabbat, to become partners with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, realizing that Shabbat is not only a day of resting from the previous week, but more importantly, Shabbat is a day of preparing, of recharging for the upcoming week, so that when we enter it, it will give everything that we do throughout the week that much more meaning. We'll stop over here, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.